Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich. Today's video is powered by Jamba Juice. I'm not sure what my daughter got me, but I didn't have to pay for it, so good. I want to talk to you about why it might not be the best idea to use something pre-published, some established adventure, as your first adventure for a brand new group, for those that are brand new to D&D. Most importantly, if you are new to D&D and you've been volunteered or nominated as the Dungeon Master. Now, this video doesn't really apply if you're a veteran DM and this is your first time entering the table in 5th edition, or if this is the first time joining at the table with new players, people you are not familiar with. No, this video really hits home a little more to brand new Dungeon Masters. Now, one thing you'll see is you'll see various message posts and forums and whatnot where the brand new DM will come to this community asking for suggestions and advice. Hey, my friends and I have been talking about Dungeons and Dragons for 20 years, and we figured it's the first time that we're going to jump in. One of my players recently got a couple of D&D books for his birthday. We're going to use those books. I've been nominated as the Dungeon Master. What's the best adventure? What's the best scenario? What's the best module? What's the best book that I can now buy or PDF I can download to run my players through D&D? Now, here's why I caution against using something pre-published and established. This is not to say that something like Lost Mine of Phandelver is not an amazing way to usher and sort of a gateway into the D&D space. There are many adventures out there that are a very good fit, and likewise, there are many adventures and pre-published works out there that are not a good fit. The other thing I am not saying that if you're new to the game, especially if you're just feeling it out and you're not even sure if you and the rest of the table is going to commit to this, I'm not saying you need to go out and world build and try and emulate everything that Tolkien did and create an entire all-encompassing timeline in history and world such as Middle-earth. What I am telling you not to do is not to use something pre-published, a module. Here's the reason why. I'm going to read something to you. What I have here is a little snippet. It's a little blurb from Tyranny of Dragons, Hoard of the Dragon Queen. I'm just pulling it up on D&D Beyond. All of these adventures, these modules, what they have is a little box. Read this to your players. Get some responses from them, see what their actions are, what is it, how do they respond to what you just read, and then it gives you a bunch of information, features, and sort of behind-the-scenes information for the Dungeon Master that tells you what to do next, right? Kind of choose your own adventure style. If the PCs inquire about this, go ahead and read this. I'm going to read this to you.
For the past several days, you have been traveling a road that winds lazily across the rolling grasslands of the green fields. Sundown is approaching when you top a rise and see the town of Greenest, just a few short miles away. But instead of the pleasant, welcoming town you expected, you see dark columns of black smoke rising from burning buildings, running figures that are little more than dots at this distance, and a dark, winged shape wheeling low over the keep that rises above the center of the town. Greenest is being attacked by a dragon.
Now, I randomly chose that completely. Didn't read it ahead of time. This might be a tough one to prove my point on because a village, a town that's being attacked by a dragon is a pretty cool selling point. But here's my point. When you use pre-published stuff, as highly rated and regarded as it is, the reason why I caution you against using them is quite simply because it may not fit the energy of the table. It may not fit what gets you as the DM excited. You see, while I do caution against, as a new Dungeon Master, building an entire world, spending a whole weekend drawing a map, delving into all the nuances, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? But while I do caution against that is you might invest all this time and energy, real life time, right? Your resources, staying up late at night, separating from your family for a little while so you can get this done. And then you bring it to the table, your players aren't feeling it. Either they're not enjoying what you're bringing to them, what you're approaching their table with, or they just simply don't like Dungeons and Dragons. They want to play some other fantasy tabletop role-playing game. Maybe they just want to hang out and play board games. But you've already invested all this time. So when you're just feeling it out, don't invest too much into it. But the beauty in world building, the beauty in coming to the table as a brand new DM, and why I would recommend this, in coming to the table with your own thing, your own story, is because I am certain you have something in there. Even if you've never been a DM before, even if you've never run a campaign before, you have something lingering in the back of your mind. Maybe it's the front of your mind. There's some movie you saw 30 years ago. There's a picture you drew. There's something you wrote down in a journal. And you didn't think that it would be confined within the rule set and the system of Dungeons and Dragons, but there's a cool idea you have. And here's the other great part. That idea doesn't have to do anything with fantasy. It might be spaceships. It might be war in the clouds out there among the systems. It might be something 1920s New York City, King Kong-esque, right? It might be something modern warfare, video game, Gears of War, Call of Duty inspired. Something has stuck, and it was a cool idea, the rescue of someone, or a fallen companion needs to be found, right? Leave no man behind. Let's search for him. It's a Victorian era haunt into an insane asylum or something like this, and you have to discover and bring in all this Cthulhu-esque elements and various X-Files, machines and trinkets and things like this, that you go in and hit these buttons and turn these knobs and try and see if there's a supernatural presence within. All of that translates to D&D, because all you do now is you just say there's gnomes that make all these gadgets and trinkets, and those are the sort of ghost hunting machines. You see, you have something lurking and churning in your mind, in your brain, and you're excited about that. So use that. Sure, certainly you're going to want to read the player's handbook and understand the rules, so you have some boundaries as to how you present this material and what constitutes combat, what constitutes social encounters, what constitutes exploration. What does that even mean when you read the first 10 pages of the player's handbook? What buttons on your character sheets of your PCs can they push? Do they just simply need to make investigate, persuasion, deception, insight checks, arcana checks to discover the supernatural presence that's within this room? Or is there an actual ghost they need to fight? Yes, you want to have access to the monster manual. And you may pull some of these monsters from established settings and established adventures. But to just pull a PDF or find a book and just sort of go top to bottom and read to your players, no matter how highly recommended that scenario adventure or one-shot is, you're not always going to guarantee that is what brings you the most excitement and the most energy. But what does bring you the most excitement and the most energy is whatever you're most excited about. The writers and designers, even though they geared it towards new players, low-level players, inexperienced players, a young audience, the writers and designers don't know what makes you and your group tick. So even if everyone is new to the table, you know what makes the players at your table tick. See, what if it's horror? What if it's vampires? What if it's something like that? Well, I don't know if you should run Curse of Strahd as a brand new Dungeon Master. It can get very unwieldy if you don't have the confidence to use voices and speak out and really put a lot of emphasis into your NPCs. Curse of Strahd may fall short versus in someone's hands like mine. And I'm not saying that I'm significantly better. I just have more experience of weaving through D&D, and I kind of know how to read the table very well. I know how to adjust and adapt on the fly. I know how much I generally need to prepare and how much I can leave to read later when I'm more comfortable with a cup of coffee later on. You may not know that, so Curse of Strahd may not be the best fit. But horror is. So what if you can't find a one-shot, an adventure, a sort of introduction to new players and new D&D tables that fits that horror element? Build it, invent it. Again, be careful. Don't go all in on world building, because you don't want to put too much into it when you're just trying to feel out whether your group even enjoys this game. And that's an entirely different video of keeping the separation between world building and being a dungeon master. Running a game is nothing at all. It's very, very separate from building a world, a D&D world, for the intention and purpose of running it in a game. They're still two different skill sets. So tread lightly with that. But whatever gets you excited is what I strongly recommend. So as much as you may see, you're new Don't try and do your own thing. Don't overwhelm yourself. Get something that some designer that knows the game has already built, intended for new players, new groups, new dungeon masters. But I want to play devil's advocate here. I want to caution you against that, because we can never really capture the essence of what you want for your first journey as a dungeon master with a new group, which is excitement, which is pacing, which is the willingness for everyone to want to absolutely, without a doubt, show up next week and do it again. Because it can be the greatest thing since sliced bread. I say this in my fitness strength world all the time. The greatest method to getting strong is of no value to someone that doesn't enjoy it, because they're not going to do it. Consistency is what builds strength. Find what sticks, even if you know something on paper is better. Find what sticks, what they will enjoy and endure for 1 hour a day, 4 to 5 times a week. If they do that month after month, year after year, they will be better than those that found the greatest program ever and only stuck with it for 2 weeks. So try and invest some of your creative fuel in building your own thing. Stay small. Look at my other videos. Wrangle through sort of the creative process, but do your own thing. Use whatever it is. Play tonight's session, tomorrow, next week's, your first journey into D&D. Learn the rules, learn the system as best you can, and run your players through something that you built, that you made. Because that, I promise you, is what you're going to be most passionate about. And there is no replacement. There is no exception to how important passion, pacing, and energy is at the table. That is what sells people on the game. That is what sells people on the system. If you're excited about it, and it shows because you've invested into it, your players will hopefully reciprocate that. And when you have a table of energy ping-ponging off of each other to such a level, at some point, you'll become master table tennis players. I'll see you guys later.